Apple versus Sonos. HomePod 2 versus Sonos One Gen 2. Two big brands, two smart speakers, and both competing to be number one in a very competitive market. But which speaker will come out on top? Hey guys, Louis here with a highly requested comparison video for you all today. And if you missed it, Apple are back with a brand new smart speaker. Well, kind of new. The HomePod Mark II launched earlier this month, putting Apple back into the more premium home speaker market. Now, as soon as we heard the HomePod was coming back, I instantly thought of this comparison right here, as the Sonos One Gen 2 has had a well-established place in this space since the launch of the Play One back in 2013. Now, this third iteration sits £100 cheaper than the HomePod 2, but for us, is the one to be in this market. Now, if you're looking for a simple answer of which speaker sounds better, this is a pretty straightforward answer. If you were to walk into a room and hear the HomePod 2 playing and then switch to the Sonos One, you'll be instantly more impressed by the HomePod. It's a more powerful speaker, it has a much deeper low end, and it just offers more oomph. So if that's all that you wanted to check out, then there's your answer. But what I'll explore in our testing is whether it's £100 better and if there are really any pros for the Sonos when it comes to sound quality. And a little bit of a spoiler, I think there might be for some of you. If you enjoyed this video, then please don't forget to subscribe. We're on the road to 100K and we've got some great treats in store for you guys as we get ever closer. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I want more than just great sound quality from my smart speaker these days. And yes, how it sounds is of course crucial, but to be a genuine smart speaker in 2023, it's got to deliver in other areas too. So I'll be comparing these speakers for their smart capabilities, their ecosystems, their design, and of course how they sound, both as a single speaker and in a stereo pair. Now, for most of us, Apple and Sonos are two brands that cannot be spoken about without mentioning their ecosystems. Now, Apple are often associated with having a fairly closed-off ecosystem. Apple products work brilliantly with other Apple products, so if you're fully immersed in their ecosystem already, it's a great experience. But for those of you just wanting to dip your toes in and use a standalone Apple product, such as this HomePod 2 with maybe an Android product, let's say, then you will start to experience some issues. And to be fair, actually, I don't think you can even set this speaker up on Android, and that's a great example of just how closed off Apple's ecosystem really can be. Sonos, on the other hand, takes a more agnostic approach, making it an accessible ecosystem for both Apple and Android users. So if we look at methods of control, with the HomePod 2, we can obviously connect via the Apple Home app, which I don't see many people using. You can use Siri, or of course, you can also use AirPlay too. So for me as a Spotify user, it's a little bit disappointing to not have Spotify Connect. Now, I'd say that Siri does have some pros and cons, but on the whole is an okay voice assistant if you're used to it. AirPlay 2 again has some pros and cons to consider as well. Now, it does mean that you can stream almost anything from your phone, but as it relies on the connection from your phone, if it dies or if you leave the house or quit down the Spotify app, for example, then the playback would of course stop. Now, it also means that it does drain your phone's battery a lot more too. But if you're an Apple Music user, it will establish a direct connection with the Apple server, and so playback will continue even if your phone dies. So on the whole, for Apple Music users, the HomePod 2 is perfect for connectivity. For anything else, it's just okay. On to the Sonos One then. So you can control playback via AirPlay 2, voice control with your choice of Amazon Alexa, Google Assistant, or Sonos Voice, and of course the Sonos app, which supports a big list of streaming services. So you can have multiple different services and accounts set up ready to stream from. Now, it also means that anyone can have their account set up so long as they're on the same Wi-Fi. Now, the benefit of streaming through the Sonos app is that it establishes a direct connection with the streaming server. So for example, Sonos has Apple Music built into the Sonos app, so it can be controlled independently of any device. Now, another benefit for Apple Music users is that you can actually have different music playing on different Sonos speakers, all running off the same Apple Music account, which is pretty handy. Now, you also get direct control from supported apps such as Spotify Connect, Amazon Music, or Tidal Connect, which again uses the app for music selection, but then Sonos makes a direct connection with the relevant music services servers. This for us gives users the best experience if they prefer the dedicated music app. So you do have more flexibility for connectivity and control with Sonos. Now, when it comes to voice assistants, again, you've got a little bit more choice. Now, you don't get the full range of capabilities capability with Alexa and Google Assistant, so you can't do drop-in with Alexa, for example, but for your playback, you've got the control that you'd need. Now, when it comes to a wider ecosystem, obviously Apple goes further into your smart life, I guess, as you've got lots of different devices which can all work together. You can have your Apple Watch, iPhone, iPad, MacBook, AirPods, etc., all talking to each other and connected up, which has a lot of pros for those deep into the Apple ecosystem. Now, admittedly, I am one of those who is well and truly in with Apple now. But if you're like me, you can then make the most of the Apple-only features with this HomePod too. So you can have everything synced up with your iCalendar, or you could ask Siri to let you know where your family members are via Find My Friends, and other personal bits from your iCloud, such as messages, and you can also transfer phone calls to the speaker. Lots of little things like that. Interestingly, the HomePod 2 also has inbuilt sensors for temperature and humidity, so if you sync that up with other smart devices, you could trigger your heating to come on when the temperature drops below a certain level. Now, this speaker is also both Matter compatible and Matter thread router, which means that this could act as the bridge or hub in your smart home. Now, that's something that I think Apple are maybe looking to push a little bit further down the line as Matter develops further. From articles online, it does look like Sonos is registered with Matter, but there's no official date or confirmation that they are Matter compatible. So for now, I'll just presume that this is a tick in the Apple box. However, there are other pros for the Sonos ecosystem. While Apple might have their fingers in more pies for wider technology, Sonos are far more centered around audio and are considered leaders in the wireless home audio market. Now, Apple currently have two home audio products, the HomePod 2 and the HomePod Mini, but I'm certainly intrigued to see if they'll push further into this industry. Maybe an Apple soundbar is in the works, who knows? But for now, Sonos are much further ahead with a wider home audio ecosystem. From portable speakers to soundbars to subwoofers to amplifiers to ceiling speakers to full 5.1 surround sound systems, Sonos has a broader range. You can create a full home of audio with multi-room capability. A large part of that is also Sonos's grouping feature, which works great. In a realistic setting, the way I use this is so I can listen to my TV audio when I'm in the kitchen as it's grouped to my lounge's soundbar. It's also good to have the flexibility to have different audio playing in different rooms throughout my house, or have all of my zones playing the same thing if I've got people over. Now, one thing that I've not really mentioned yet is the design of these speakers, which is something that we often overlook in a comparison. But in reality, if you don't like how a speaker looks, then you're probably not going to put it in your home. Now, both of these options I personally think are great looking speakers. I think Apple and Sonos have very similar aesthetics, even down to their unboxing experiences. And both of these speakers have a premium feel, taking home aesthetics into consideration so that they blend into your home environment. Both come in black and white variations, though there are a couple of differences that are worth pointing out. So for one, the materials. Sonos have this metal wraparound grille, whereas Apple have opted for a cloth material. Both have touch capacitive touch controls on the top panels here, but Apple also have this top panel screen which shows you when Siri is listening, things like that. Now, personally, I like both of these speakers, but my one concern would be if the white variation of the HomePod would maybe get a little bit grubby over time, but I would be happy to have either of these in my house. Right, the part I'm sure you've all been waiting for, the sound test. So before I share my thoughts, I'm going to give you guys a listen. Firstly, at the speakers individually, and then in a stereo pair. Now, my usual disclaimer that how it sounds over YouTube isn't going to be the same as what we're hearing right here in the studio, but it should give you a good flavor of how these sound. So, as I mentioned at the start, there's clearly a lot more power behind the HomePod 2. Now, interestingly, Apple have removed 2 of the tweeters in this version compared with the original HomePod, but I don't think that that's impacted the sound profile, probably due to the advancements in the processor. On the whole, I think the HomePod 2 gives an impactful performance, and I was impressed when I first heard it out of the box. It well outperforms the Sonos One in the low end, and I think that it does offer a more expansive sound too. But what was interesting was the things that we noticed when we listened over a longer period of time with multiple different tracks and genres. While the Sonos never competed for spaciousness or bass, it did offer a really nice performance for vocals and mid-range. And so in certain tracks like Part of the Band from the 1975, I picked up extra details and little nuances that I think were lost a little bit with the HomePod. But is the HomePod worth an additional £100 over the Sonos One? Well, I think that depends on what you want out of your speaker and the type of music that you listen to. If you're into bass-heavy tracks, so looking to fill a larger space, and overall are looking for as much bang for your buck power-wise, then yeah. But if you prefer a more nuanced sound and are looking for a speaker where you can really listen to your favorite artists and achieve a more realistic performance, then I'm not sure that you'll really see the benefit. It's a similar conversation when it comes to these speakers as a stereo pair. I think the overall performances have similar pros and cons. A pair of HomePods would be a better option for large spaces, and I can see this being a great party setup. The ones aren't as instantly impressive because they lack that lower end oomph, but they do shine in other areas of the track. Now, one big difference we have to highlight with these is spatial audio. Currently, if you want to listen to spatial audio on Apple Music, you would need to opt for the HomePods. And let me tell you, on a good spatial audio track, let's be honest, spatial audio is still a little bit hit and miss, but on a good track, a pair of these HomePods sound pretty amazing. With the Sonos Ones, there's no support for true spatial audio, so it's a no-go on these currently, so that would be another tick in the HomePod box if spatial audio is what you're looking for. One other differentiator is that you do have the option to use a pair of HomePods as your TV speakers with an Apple TV 4K. Now, I'm not going to get into a full review of these as TV speakers in this video, so let me know if you'd like to see that video a little bit later down the line, maybe even versus the Sonos Beam. But for now, it's a good plus point for the HomePods if you're looking to maximize your budget by having a pair of stereo speakers that also double up as your TV speakers. And from our initial testing, the HomePods did a good job with both TV and movie audio. Both of these speakers offer some form of room correction software. Now, Apple automatically adjusts the acoustics when it detects its environment, while Sonos is a more hands-on process with TruePlay tuning. Now, both seem to work well, but I would have liked it if you can toggle it on and off with the HomePod like you can do with Sonos, so you can really hear what difference it makes. Now, when it comes to EQ adjustments, you are a little bit more limited with the HomePod 2, and all you can really do is toggle a switch in the Home app to reduce bass. Now for Sonos, on the other hand, you get a little bit more personalization over playback with bass and treble EQ adjustments, as well as a loudness toggle to give it an extra boost if you want that. So, which speaker do we think comes out on top? Well, as always, this is the time for you to let us know down in the comments which ones you go for. Hopefully this review has helped you make up your mind either way. For me, I think the HomePod 2 is a decent option for Apple users with Apple Music, who are happy with Siri, and who are looking for an impressive, punchy speaker with great bass. I think there will be a lot of HomePod mini users who also have been waiting for this speaker to come out to level up their audio. However, I think there's a big market for people looking for a smart speaker which can be either the start of or complement their wireless home audio setup. And for me, Sonos are ahead in that respect. If you've watched my full HomePod review, you'll have seen that I've decided to return the HomePod as it doesn't tick enough boxes for me, especially as someone who uses Spotify Connect. So if I had to choose, the One would take the win for me right now, but it will be very interesting to see where these two companies go next. I'm sure that there are more products to come from these brands to take this competition even further. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.